Hallo und herzlich willkommen auf eine Tasse Tee. Diesmal in englischer Sprache. Den Text und alles andere findest du nachher unten im Blog. Welcome for a cup of tea. Here's your certified management consultant for vendor management. I'm Managing Director of European Institute for Service Quality, Bernhard Gandolf. Today, I'm pleased to welcome the international expert on outsourcing, nearshoring, BPO, Russ Sandlin. Russ is the co-founder and CEO of Price. Currently, he's working on a project in Doha. Russ, in your experience, what are the 2 to 3 most important critical success factors in nearshore outsourcing?
Well, first off, thank you to you and your audience for welcoming me. Very excited to talk to your Deutschland fans, and very happy to be talking to you. So the 2 or 3 success factors in my mind for nearshore or offshore would be making sure that you set the contract up the way you want it from the start. The contract articulates the customer promise, the customer service level agreements, the ways you interact with the customers, how fast you interact with them, how you measure it, such as Net Promoter Score or customer satisfaction, and the real-time reporting that would be required, how you understand and escalate matters. So a inspection process needs to be articulated in the contract portion of it, and then a performance management system that really encapsulates all those things so that you can see how the vendor is doing and make sure they're reaching their targets. So
contract, performance management, measurement.
That's right.
That's your first success factor, or are these the 3?
I would say those 3 are nestled into one, but those 3 things are separate entities within one. So you're going to need to set up a contract, and you're going to need to inspect the contract, and you need to put a lot of thought into your contract before you request for proposals from your prospective vendors. So setting it up right from the start is really the secret.
Okay.
So that's really it.
Well, we've been talking about contracts. How about relation? How often do principals visit their nearshore outsourcing provider in person? How regularly should they?
That's a great question, and that has been a shifting sand answer, because before COVID, typically every quarter, Fortune 500 companies would send out people like me to go kick the tires and make sure their performance management was up to snuff. But then everything changed in COVID. I never used Team before. I never used these things up until 2.5, 3 years ago. Then all of a sudden, I'm on these calls for 10 hours a day. So a lot of that now is still being handled through daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings online, which in many respects is much more it's cost effective. But the problem with that is you lose relationship. You just described relationship. So having face-to-face meetings helps to garner relationship and trust, and helps to avoid mistakes, because when we're talking in a team meeting, it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to misconstrue what the other party is saying because you don't see the body language and the inflections. So I think that as we become more post-COVID, we'll get back to more of at least every half year having the on-site visits. I don't know if we'll ever go back to quarterly, but probably every half year would be more realistic, along with the weekly and quarterly meetings that you have online.
Okay, so regularly online meetings, supposed at least half a year, if possible, quarterly.
That's right.
Right.
It's funny, my major client that I'm using on one of my contracts in Qatar for the last 11 years is a German-based company. Well, they're now in Luxembourg, but so we've had a lot of meetings via Teams. So just realized they're a German company while talking to you. Usually it's a French company for some reason, or a US company, but there's a very big one out of Germany as well that's very good.
Fantastic.
Can't say who it is.
I have no idea. It's maybe a public railway company.
Yeah, I'm sure your guest will know exactly who it is.
Russ, when we talk about relation, we are also talking about the people, the staff, the agents. What's your favorite recipe for turning agents into ambassadors for a principal's brand?
I tell you, I have some hacks that I use. One of them is it's so important to engage with your customers with your agents with systems, things like gamification, where they're engaged and they're trying to compete with themselves to get their personal best for net promoter score or customer satisfaction or customer sentiment. So I like deploying gamification. It's a really, really good way to get them to enjoy coming to work. The second thing that I really like is recognition. It's important that you recognize the right people every month, whether it's perfect attendance, which is so important in our business, or best quality or best scorecard. So I think that you must have discipline to do this every month. And I also reach out to the local newspapers. Yes, there are still newspapers. I ask them to come in and take pictures of the best agents when we do these monthly meetings. And those agents, what they'll do is they'll get this certificate from Microsoft that I produce, that I print out, and then they'll take a picture, it'll go in the newspaper, and they always clip it out and take it and give it to their parents or whatever. So I think deploying the local newspaper to enjoy the success of your agents, because success in your agents is easy to find. You just need to be looking for the things that they're doing right, and then you need to recognize it. And by doing those little things, I think they feel a part of it. So employee satisfaction is so important. You should measure it, and you should also try to embrace it through those little hacks that I do.
Great, fantastic. I'm really fond of this idea with the local newspaper. If we talk about outsourcing, nearshore, offshore, and according to your YouTube channel, I strictly recommend, you will find the link downstairs. You must have already been to every country in the world. So there are a lot of cultural differences, economic stability, political situation, lower greenhouse effects, which I know is quite important to you too. Do these aspects play any role to your customers? Are they important for your customers?
That's a trick question because I have so many different customers from so many different locations. So it depends customer by customer. But the most important thing is to understand your customer, know your customer, and know what their needs and requirements are for each of. So if you're working for a high-tech company that is looking into lower greenhouse emissions, then you'll need to formulate an out-of-box experience for your customer that reflects that value. And then your company needs to reflect that in terms of, you talked about those quarterly meetings. Well, if you're trying to lower greenhouse effects, then you'll probably want to tell people, you know what, we no longer have annual meetings. We do it online so that we don't have that airplane going across eating up the ozone layer. So my answer to you on that would be, you need to understand your customer first and foremost, no matter who you are or where you are. And then you need to try to cater your product to match the expectations of your customer in every aspect of your service delivery and the customer journey.
The reason why I'm asking is because, according to my point of view, European companies tend to have a closer look at economic stability, political situation, lower greenhouse effects nowadays. Before, it was very much just about money.
Price.
Price.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The labor arbitrage has always been the governing factor. And I think, to be honest with you, is still pretty important. But I think that, on the other hand, if you're trying to articulate a service delivery model for your customers, you want to try to put your service delivery centers in places that aren't going to be impacted by political unrest, where they can't get to work because something's going on, by climate change, too many hurricanes, typhoons, monsoons, volcanic activity, you name it. So you want to make sure the natural disasters aren't going to affect the service delivery, as well as the political concerns. And believe me, I've been all over the world and I've seen all of that. I've had to wade into work with water up to my waist and have a backpack to change. I've had to go through political issues all over the planet. Won't get into all those details, but I've seen a lot of riots in a lot of different countries. So that weighs on the site selection criteria. You have different matrices. You look at, obviously, you look at the cost of doing business. You also look at the stability. What's the power grid like? What's the chance that the fiber optic cable is going to be taken out in the undersea in that location? And then what kinds of things in terms of weather could distract it? So you need to have a delivery mechanism to make sure that you have a primary location, a secondary, a tertiary, and you have backups. You always had to have a backup solution because you'll always have to deploy it sooner or later.
Fantastic. Final question. Europeans tend to look at the United States saying, well, they are always 2 to 3 years ahead. So what will be the next big thing in outsourcing industry, according to your expert point of view?
Gosh, that's a really good question. And I've been kind of that futurist for the last 30 years. And we're just realizing now what I thought we'd be doing 30 years ago. But the metaverse, companies like Microsoft 365, what they're doing is just fantastic in terms of deploying AI. I think that AI is just going to get better and better with the voice recognition, the voice bots, the chat bots. Now, that's actually starting to get deployed now, especially in the United States. They're using voice recognition to authenticate their customers, which is it's got some hiccups right now, but I think in the next 2 or 3 years it's going to get better and better and better. And I think that the ability for customers to self-serve, because millennials love to use their apps instead of talking, will start to take a bigger chunk of the delivery models. Right now, you still have a lot of people my age who like to use a phone. But in the future, I don't know how much of that's going to happen. So I think you're going to see more blended offerings where someone can just go on to WhatsApp and talk to you about the product. And then, you know what, I'm on tweet, so I'm going to tweet something out. And then you know your customer, you know all those different components and all those different handles so that you can formulate a unified response in an omni-channel environment. And everyone touts omni-channel for the last 5 or 6 years, but I have news for you. Most of those omni-channel delivery mechanisms that I saw in the last 5 or 6 years were really multi-channel, and they were separated. They weren't really omni-channel. We're just getting to real omni-channel now, where the software can recognize a Bavarian accent versus a northern accent versus so I understand there's like 6 or 7 different really distinct dialects of German. So variant companies like that, I probably shouldn't have said that word, but a lot of companies are going to be deploying very good software to really deploy either the best chatbot or voice bot, or even the best agent with the same dialect to cater to the needs of the customer, so there's no confusion. So I think that's the kind of an exciting thing that I'm seeing right now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your insights. I really appreciate your time, and see you for the next cup of tea.
That's right. Danke.
Sie sind noch da? Hey! Sie wollen mehr von uns sehen? Abonnieren Sie gleich unseren Kanal. Noch besser, lassen Sie uns teamen. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Ihr Bernhard Gandolf.